excuse for not trying. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm honored to speak to you all about a topic that has shaped my life in the most unexpected ways. We live in a world full of challenges, uncertainties, and obstacles, but there's one thing I've learned: there is no excuse for not trying. At some point in our lives, we all face the temptation to give up, to believe that things are just too hard, that the odds are too stacked against us. But I've come to realize that those are the moments that define who we are. They're the moments when we get to decide, will we find a way forward or will we stay stuck? When I faced the hardest challenge of my life, when everything felt uncertain and impossible, I could have walked away. I could have let the fear of failure hold me back, but I didn't. Instead, I leaned into the discomfort, the uncertainty, and took one step at a time. There was no grand plan. There were no guarantees. There was only the belief that trying, no matter how small the steps, would lead me somewhere. Embrace the struggle, not the perfection. In a world that constantly shows us highlights and successes, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that perfection is the goal, that everything we do should look effortless, flawless, and easy. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that the true magic in life happens not in the moments of perfection, but in the struggle, the moments when things are messy, uncertain, and challenging. Perfection is an illusion. It's the idea that we should have it all together, that every step should be planned and every outcome predictable. And let's be real for a second, how many of us actually live like that? How many of us wake up every morning with everything neatly in place, with every challenge neatly solved? The truth is, life is far more unpredictable and raw than perfection would ever allow. When I faced my own toughest obstacles, I could have let the idea of perfection keep me stuck. I could have said to myself, I need to be fully healed before I try again, or I need to get everything perfect before I make my next move. But if I'd waited for perfection, I'd still be waiting today. Instead, I had to embrace the struggle. I had to lean into the discomfort of not knowing, of not having all the answers, and trust that every step forward, no matter how small, was progress. Embracing the struggle means accepting that the process is messy, that things won't always go the way you expect. And that's okay. It's part of the journey. We're constantly learning, adapting, and evolving. And when we stop chasing perfection, we open ourselves up to the beauty of the process itself. The struggle is where growth happens. It's where we learn resilience, where we develop patience, and where we discover what we're truly capable of. It's in those moments of difficulty that we often find our greatest strength, not in the smooth, perfectly polished moments. The struggle teaches us to be resourceful, to think outside the box, to find creative solutions when things don't go according to plan. And let's talk about vulnerability for a second. The struggle can be uncomfortable because it exposes us, it makes us feel vulnerable. But vulnerability is not a weakness, it's where connection happens. It's where we allow ourselves to be human, to experience life in all its rawness. And it's in that rawness that we connect with others in deeper, more meaningful ways. If we wait for perfection, we miss out on so much. We miss out on the lessons that come from failing, the insights gained from pushing through hard times, and the unexpected beauty that arises from our imperfections. The reality is, perfection is never the end goal. It's the effort, the heart, the determination, and yes, the struggle that shapes us into who we're meant to be. One step. That's all it takes to start moving forward. The problem is, we often get caught up in the end result. We want to be at the top of the mountain. We want the finish line in sight. And we get frustrated because we're not there yet. But the truth is, you can't get to the finish line without first taking that first step. And then the next one. And then the next. When I lost both of my legs, I felt like I had to rebuild my entire life. The idea of walking again, let alone dancing, seemed impossible. I couldn't even fathom how to start. But the key was that I didn't have to do it all at once. I didn't have to figure everything out in a single moment. What I could do was focus on the small, incremental steps. Each time I took a step, no matter how shaky, I was moving closer to something greater. The small steps were progress. And progress is all that matters. It's easy to look at someone who's achieved something great and assume they did it effortlessly. But what you don't see is the countless small steps that led them there. The early mornings, the failures, the frustrations. We're all so focused on the outcome that we forget to acknowledge the journey. And the journey is where the real transformation happens. It's in the moments when you can't see the end, when you feel lost or uncertain, that you have to trust that if you keep taking one step at a time, you will eventually get to where you want to be. And it's important to remember some steps are going to be harder than others. There will be days when it feels like you're walking uphill, when every step feels like a struggle. And that's okay, those steps count too. It's easy to celebrate the smooth, easy moments, but the hard steps are often the ones that shape you the most. They test your resilience, your character, and your commitment to your goals. And when you push through them, those hard steps become the building blocks of your strength. Sometimes the key to moving forward isn't to look ahead at the whole mountain, but to just focus on the next step. Break it down. Instead of worrying about the entire journey, focus on the immediate next action that you need to take. Whether that's putting one foot in front of the other, making one phone call, or taking one small action toward your goal. It might feel insignificant in the moment, but those small actions add up over time. Taking one step at a time also allows room for flexibility. Life is unpredictable, and sometimes we have to pivot. Maybe you take a step and realize you've gone in the wrong direction. That's okay. You don't have to have everything figured out from the beginning. The key is to keep moving. If you fall, get back up and take another step. If you stumble, learn from it and try again. Each step, no matter how imperfect, is progress. By taking one step at a time, you give yourself permission to grow at your own pace. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to race to the finish line. What you need is the courage to keep moving forward one step at a time, knowing that each step you take brings you closer to where you want to be. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, remember it's not about the whole journey. It's not about the destination. It's about the one step you can take right now. Focus on that, take it, and then take the next one. And the next, because that's how you move mountains, step by step. Shift the focus from failure to learning. I think it's safe to say that none of us are strangers to failure. At some point, we've all faced that feeling, the weight of something not going as planned, the sting of trying and falling short. And it's easy to allow failure to define us, to let it tell us we're not good enough or that we're never going to succeed. But I've come to understand something incredibly important. Failure is not something to fear, it's something to learn from. We live in a world that often praises success and overlooks the value of struggle. We're taught that failing is a sign of weakness or inadequacy, but what if we've been looking at it all wrong? What if, instead of avoiding failure, we embraced it as an essential part of our growth? Because the truth is, failure isn't the end, it's just part of the process, part of the path to where you're going. It's a teacher, not a verdict. When I first started my journey to regain independence after my accident, I failed more times than I can count. Each time I tried something new, whether it was standing up on prosthetics, learning to walk again, or simply getting out of bed, it didn't always go the way I hoped. Sometimes I would fall, sometimes I would make mistakes, but I didn't let those moments define me. I chose to see them as part of the learning process. In those moments of failure, I wasn't failing as a person. I was failing at something, but that something didn't reflect my worth. And that's key. Too often, we associate failure with our identity. We think I failed, therefore I am a failure. But failure doesn't have to be a reflection of who you are. It's a moment that's teaching you something you didn't know before, and those lessons are priceless. What would happen if, instead of fearing failure, we started asking ourselves, what can I learn from this? If we saw every setback as an opportunity for growth, every mistake as a chance to adjust, refine, and improve? It changes the whole dynamic. Failure isn't a mark of defeat, it's a stepping stone on the way to success. And the most successful people, they've probably failed more times than they can count. But they've learned to get back up and try again, armed with the lessons their failures have taught them. When I failed, it was tempting to let self-doubt creep in. I would think maybe I'm just not capable, or maybe this isn't meant for me, but I had to shift my mindset. I had to remind myself that failure is not about what I can't do. It's about what I can learn. It's not about what I can't control, but about what I can adjust. The failures gave me the insight to see what worked, what didn't, and what I needed to change to keep moving forward. And here's the thing, failure doesn't mean you're starting over. It's simply a chance to recalibrate, to go back to the drawing board and try a different approach. One of the greatest gifts of failure is that it teaches resilience. It teaches you that it's okay to stumble, to try something and realize it didn't work. It teaches you that the real failure is not in the falling, but in the giving up. For me, the shift in mindset was crucial. Instead of focusing on what went wrong, I began to focus on what I could take away from it. What could I adjust to make things better? What small change could I make that would get me closer to where I wanted to be? By doing that, I didn't just keep moving, I became better for each failure I faced. This mindset applies to every aspect of life. Whether you're learning something new, chasing a big dream, or facing a tough challenge, you'll face setbacks. It's inevitable. But what if you saw each setback as a lesson, as a chance to grow stronger, smarter, more resilient? What if you didn't let failure define you, but instead let it refine you? The most important thing is that you keep going, you keep learning, keep adjusting, and keep growing. The journey is never a straight line. It's full of twists, turns, and obstacles, and each one is an opportunity to learn something new about yourself. Every time you fail and get back up, you build not only your physical strength, but your mental toughness, your perseverance, and your ability to overcome. So the next time you fail, don't be discouraged. Don't let the fear of failure stop you from trying again. Instead, ask yourself, what did I learn? What can I take away from this moment to make the next one even better? Shift the focus from failure to learning, and you'll find that every step forward, no matter how imperfect, is moving you closer to your ultimate goal. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act anyway. We often think of courage as something that comes without fear, like it's this unwavering sense of bravery that lets you walk into any situation, unfazed by the challenges in front of you. And I'll admit, there are moments when I've wished for that kind of certainty. But the truth is, courage doesn't look like that at all. Courage isn't about eliminating fear, it's about acknowledging it and moving forward anyway. Fear is something we all experience no matter how confident or strong we appear on the outside. Fear shows up in different ways. It's the doubt that creeps into your mind when you're standing at the edge of something unknown, the hesitation that makes you second guess yourself, or the worry that you might not be good enough. And let me tell you, I know that fear well. When I first lost my legs, I was terrified. I was afraid of what my life would be like, afraid of being judged, afraid of failing. Fear took up a lot of space in my mind. But it was the choice to act, despite that fear, that changed everything for me. Courage, I've learned, isn't about feeling fearless. It's about feeling the fear and saying, I'm still going to try. It's about showing up even when you're unsure, even when you don't know how things will turn out. It's about taking a leap even when the ground feels shaky and the outcome is uncertain. We often think that if we're truly courageous, we shouldn't feel afraid. But what if we redefine courage? What if we saw it as the act of moving forward, in spite of fear, not because the fear has disappeared? Every time I step into a challenge, whether it's something physical, mental, or emotional, I feel that same fear, the uncertainty, the doubt, the what if I fail, but courage doesn't mean you don't feel those things. It means you act in spite of them. You acknowledge that the fear is there, but you don't let it dictate your actions. The first time I tried to walk again after my accident, fear was right there with me. The idea of putting on my prosthetics, standing and taking those first steps was terrifying. I was scared I would fall, scared I wouldn't be able to move like I once had. But I had to remind myself that courage wasn't about feeling safe or comfortable. It was about making the decision to take that first step anyway. And then the next, and the next. Each time I faced my fear and took action, I was building my courage, not because I didn't have fear, but because I moved forward despite it. Fear often shows up in the most unexpected ways. It can be the fear of failure, the fear of judgment, or even the fear of success. We may be afraid of what might happen if we succeed, or even worse, afraid of what might happen if we don't try at all. But courage doesn't demand that fear goes away. It asks you to acknowledge it, to sit with it, and to move forward regardless. The most courageous people I know aren't the ones who have no fear. They're the ones who take the next step anyway. They don't let fear stop them. They don't let it keep them stuck. They act in the face of fear because they know that the possibility of growth, of transformation, of achieving something incredible is greater than the fear itself. The power of courage is that it's not about being perfect. It's not about having everything figured out. Courage is about taking imperfect action, about making mistakes and learning from them. It's about trusting yourself enough to keep going, even when you feel vulnerable or unsure. The act of courage is to keep going, even when you're terrified, to move through the fear, and to know that on the other side of it, you'll be stronger, wiser, and more capable than you were before. This is something I had to learn again and again on my journey. Each time I faced a new challenge, fear would show up, and I had to remind myself that fear didn't have to control me. I didn't have to wait for fear to go away to take action. I just had to choose to move, to take that step despite how I felt. And each time I did, I built my resilience, my strength, and my courage. So when fear shows up, don't see it as a barrier, see it as a sign that you're on the edge of something new, something worth exploring. Let it be the signal that you're about to do something that requires you to grow, to expand, and to step into a higher version of yourself. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the willingness to take that next step in the face of it, knowing that even though you can't see all the answers yet, you're capable of finding them. The next time you feel afraid, remember this courage isn't about being fearless, it's about doing it anyway. Fear is a part of the process. Let it be the spark that ignites your action, not the chain that holds you back. So step forward, fear and all, and let your courage lead the way. Resilience is built in the moments you want to give up. There are moments in life when everything feels like it's too much, when you've given it your all, and it still doesn't seem to be enough, when the weight of the world feels like it's pressing down on your shoulders and all you want to do is give up. In those moments, it's easy to believe that quitting is the only option. But here's the truth I've learned: resilience isn't built in the easy moments. It's built in the moments when you want to give up the most. Resilience isn't about being strong all the time or being able to bounce back from anything without feeling a thing. It's about what you do when you're at your lowest. It's about what happens when you're faced with the choice to either quit or keep going, even when it seems like everything is stacked against you. The thing about resilience is that it's forged in the hardest, most painful parts of our journey. It's not a trait you're born with. It's something you develop through struggle, persistence, and the will to rise again when the world seems to be pulling you down. I know what it feels like to want to give up. I know the feeling of being exhausted physically and emotionally and wondering how much longer you can keep going. When I was recovering after my accident, there were days when I wanted to quit, days when the pain was unbearable, days when it felt like I wasn't making any progress, days when my dreams seemed impossible. But in those moments, I had to remind myself that resilience wasn't about how fast I could heal or how perfect the journey was. It was about choosing to keep going, even when I didn't feel like it. It was about pushing through those hard days, one small step at a time, and trusting that I was building something stronger within myself. When you face a challenge, whether it's physical, emotional, or mental, you can't always predict how you'll feel in the midst of it. Some days will feel easier than others, but there will be times when you'll feel like throwing in the towel. And that's okay. It's okay to feel worn out. It's okay to feel discouraged. But what's important is that you don't let those feelings stop you. Resilience doesn't mean you're immune to feeling defeated. It means that in those moments of despair, you find a way to keep going. The most important thing to remember when you're in that space, when everything inside of you is screaming to stop, is that you have a choice. The choice to either stay down or to rise again. And it's in that choice, in those split-second decisions, that resilience is born. Every time you choose to keep moving forward, even if it's just a tiny step forward, you're building your resilience. Each time you get up after falling, you're proving to yourself that you are stronger than the obstacle in front of you. But here's the thing, resilience doesn't always look like victory at first. It doesn't always mean that you'll come out of the struggle immediately on top. Sometimes resilience is simply about showing up every single day. It's about taking one more step, even when you don't have all the answers. Sometimes it's about putting one foot in front of the other, even when you're not sure how far you'll get. In my journey, I've learned that resilience is less about grand moments of triumph and more about the quiet persistence that happens in between. It's the act of showing up even when you're not sure how things will turn out. It's trusting yourself enough to keep moving, even when it feels like you're not making progress. Resilience is built in the times when no one is watching, when you're alone with your doubts and fears, but you still choose to keep going anyway. When things get tough, and they will remember this, the greatest growth happens when you feel like you can't take another step. It's when you're pushing against the hardest parts of your journey that you're building your resilience, even if you don't see it right away. It's not about perfection. It's about persistence. It's about knowing that you can't always control what happens, but you can control how you respond. And in that response, you become stronger. There will always be moments when life feels impossible, but it's in those very moments that your true strength is revealed. Resilience isn't a magic fix. It's a muscle, one that gets stronger with use. And while the moments when you want to give up are painful, they are also the moments that teach you who you really are, what you're made of, and how much you can endure. So when you find yourself at the edge, when you feel like you can't go any further, don't give up. Remember that resilience is built in the moments you want to give up, and it's those moments that will make you stronger, more capable, and more ready to face whatever comes next. Keep going, because your resilience is growing with every step. You are your greatest advocate. There are moments in life when the world around you feels overwhelming. The voices of doubt, criticism, and uncertainty can easily drown out the voice that says, "You've got this." It's easy to look to others for validation, to seek approval or encouragement, hoping that someone else will believe in us when we struggle to believe in ourselves. But here's the truth I've come to realize: no one can advocate for you like you can. You are your greatest advocate. And when you stand in your own corner, that's when you'll truly discover your power. I've learned this lesson time and time again throughout my journey. When I lost my legs, there were moments when I felt like the world was telling me what I couldn't do. Doctors told me I might never walk again. Friends and family expressed concern about my future. And there were days when I didn't even know if I believed in myself. But in those dark moments, I had to realize that if I didn't speak up for myself, no one else would. If I didn't advocate for my dreams, my health, and my happiness, how could I expect anyone else to? Being your own advocate doesn't mean shutting out the opinions and advice of others. It means being the one who knows your worth, your strengths, and your capabilities better than anyone else. It means standing firm in your own belief system, even when the world around you tries to pull you off course. It means listening to your inner voice and trusting that you know what's best for you. For me, that realization didn't come easily. There were so many moments when I doubted myself, when I wondered if I was asking for too much, or if my dreams were too big. But when I finally started advocating for myself, when I started saying, I am capable and I deserve this, that's when things began to change. The more I stood up for myself, the more I was able to create a life that felt true to who I really was. The world may not always understand you. People might question your choices, doubt your abilities, or tell you what they think is best for you. But the only person who knows what's right for you is you. And when you can advocate for yourself, you stop waiting for the permission of others to chase your dreams. You stop relying on the approval of others to validate your worth. You start realizing that your voice, your choices, and your desires matter. There were countless times in my recovery when I had to fight for myself. I had to advocate for my health, for my right to move forward, and for the opportunity to build a life that felt fulfilling. No one else could do it for me. I had to be the one to say, this is the life I want to create, and I'm going to fight for it. And in doing so, I realized that every time I spoke up for myself, every time I pushed past fear and doubt, I was growing stronger, more confident, and more capable. But being your own advocate isn't just about asking for what you want. It's also about standing up for what you need, especially when things get tough. There will be times when you face obstacles, when the road ahead seems impossible, and when the world around you seems to be working against you. But in those moments, it's critical to remind yourself that you are the one who gets to decide how you respond. You are the one who decides what you're willing to fight for. It's easy to believe that others know what's best for us, but the truth is, no one knows your heart like you do. No one understands your passion, your resilience, and your vision for your life like you do. So when you face challenges, when you're uncertain, remember that you have the power to speak up for yourself. You have the ability to advocate for your dreams, your well-being, and your future. Advocating for yourself also means practicing self-compassion. It means understanding that you're human, that you're going to make mistakes, have setbacks, and face challenges along the way. But being your own advocate doesn't mean expecting perfection from yourself. It means supporting yourself through the tough times, giving yourself the grace to learn and grow, and pushing forward even when things don't go according to plan. When I first started pursuing my dreams of competing in adaptive snowboarding, I had to fight for my place in a world that didn't always recognize my potential. There were plenty of people who told me I couldn't do it, but I had to choose to advocate for myself, to say, I belong here, I can do this. And I'm not going to let anyone tell me otherwise. That mindset was a game changer. It gave me the confidence to show up, to put in the work, and to believe in myself, even when others doubted me. Your potential is beyond what you see in front of you. There are moments in life when everything feels impossible, when the challenges in front of you seem so overwhelming that it's hard to even imagine a way forward. When the road ahead looks so uncertain, and the obstacles seem so insurmountable, it's easy to get lost in the idea that what's right in front of you is all there is, that this is all you'll ever be able to do or become or achieve. I've been there. After my accident, there were days when it felt like my future was nothing but a series of limitations. I lost my legs, and with them, I lost a lot of what I thought was possible for my life. At first, it was hard to even imagine a world beyond the pain, the physical limitations, and the uncertainty. The road ahead seemed like nothing but obstacles, and I wondered if I would ever see the other side of them. I've come to realize that the way we see the world and the way we see ourselves often limits us in ways we don't even realize. We get caught up in what we can see with our eyes and what's immediately in front of us. We focus on the obstacles, the setbacks, the disappointments, and the doubts, and we begin to believe that these things define us. We start to think that they are the measure of what's possible. But the truth is, you are capable of so much more than what you see in front of you right now. You are capable of growth, of transformation, and of becoming someone you haven't even imagined yet. Your potential isn't confined to the limitations of today. It stretches far beyond the obstacles you face, far beyond the challenges in front of you. And the only way to tap into that potential is by choosing to look beyond what's immediately visible, beyond the setbacks, beyond the struggles, beyond the limits that life tries to impose on you. When I first started learning to walk again, I couldn't see the future. All I saw were the challenges ahead. I saw the prosthetics, the struggle, the discomfort, and the unknown. But what I didn't see was the strength I was developing inside of myself. What I couldn't see were the incredible experiences that awaited me, the competitions, the travel, the opportunities to inspire others. What I couldn't see was the way I would break down the barriers of what was supposed to be possible. If I had focused only on what was in front of me at that time, I would have missed the vast potential that lay just beyond my current circumstances. Your potential is like that. It's not always visible in the moment. It's not always easy to see when you're stuck in a place of struggle or uncertainty. But I promise you it's there. It's beyond the obstacles, beyond the no's, beyond the I can'ts. It's hidden in the moments when you choose to keep going, even when it seems like there's no way forward. Your potential is in the persistence, the resilience, the choices you make to rise every time you fall. It's in the moments when you refuse to let the challenges define you. You don't have to see the whole path in front of you to know that you're capable of walking it. When I started snowboarding again after my accident, I didn't know how I would make it to the next step. I didn't know how many falls it would take or how many times I would feel like giving up, but I trusted that each step I took was building towards something bigger. I couldn't see it all right then, but I knew that every little bit of progress was leading me somewhere greater than I could imagine. When you're going through tough times, it's easy to feel like the world is telling you what you can't do, like the obstacles ahead of you are bigger than your dreams. But you have to remember that what's in front of you is not the final destination. It's not the end of your journey, it's just part of it. Your potential is beyond the struggles you face right now. It's waiting for you to tap into it. Think about the way you look at a mountain. From the base, it may look overwhelming. The top seems so far away and the climb seems impossible. But once you start climbing, once you take one step at a time, you begin to see that the mountain wasn't as immovable as it first appeared. And once you reach the top, you realize that the journey itself, every single step was building you, making you stronger, teaching you something new. The potential to climb that mountain was always inside of you. You just couldn't see it until you started the climb. The same is true for your life. Your potential isn't limited by what you can see today, by the obstacles or challenges you face in this moment. It's beyond what's in front of you right now. It's about taking the next step and the one after that. It's about pushing through the doubts, the fears, and the struggles, because each time you do, you're getting closer to unlocking something within you that you couldn't see before. And remember, your potential doesn't just exist in big moments. It's also in the small, seemingly insignificant steps you take along the way. Every time you choose to get back up, every time you push through a challenge, you are unlocking a little more of that incredible potential. It's already inside you. It's just waiting for you to recognize it, to trust it, and to take the steps that will lead you to it. So the next time you feel like the path ahead is too difficult or too uncertain, remind yourself of this. Your potential is not limited by what you can see in front of you. It's bigger than that. It's beyond the obstacles. It's beyond the struggles. It's far beyond the limits you may feel right now. And the more you trust in your ability to move forward, even when the way forward isn't clear, the more you'll discover just how vast your potential really is. You have the strength, the resilience, and the capacity to go further than you ever imagined. The only thing standing between you and your potential is the belief that it's already within you. And once you believe that, there's nothing stopping you. As we come to the end of this journey together today, I want you to leave with one powerful truth: there is no excuse for not trying. The challenges you face, the doubts that cloud your vision, and the fear that holds you back, those are all real, and they are part of your story. But they do not define you. You do. You are your greatest advocate. In the moments when you feel lost or uncertain, remember that the power to overcome, to rise again, and to create your own path is already within you. You are capable of more than you can see in front of you right now. And every step you take, no matter how small, brings you closer to the person you are meant to become. So don't wait for perfection. Don't wait for the world to tell you it's okay. Embrace the struggle, because in it lies the growth you need. Take one step at a time, even when you're not sure where it will lead. And when you fall, when you face setbacks, choose to rise again. Now, go out there and show the world what you're capable of, because your potential is far beyond what you can see in front of you.